All right. Welcome back to Real Shift, everyone. My name's Joe. Today I'm going to be doing a official spoiler review for The Hunt. This is the film directed by Craig Zobel and co-written by Damon Lindelof. This is the movie, if you don't remember, that was actually canceled or pushed back at one point. It was actually originally scheduled for September 27, 2019, but after the El Paso and Dayton mass shootings, they decided to postpone the movie. Actually, they canceled it altogether at one point, but it was either postponed or canceled at various points throughout its release. Eventually, they decided to release it now in March of 2020. I thought it was pretty clever how they used the controversy surrounding the film in the marketing of the film. Like, if you look at the posters and everything, they talk about how it's, the most talked about movie that no one's ever seen before. And while I don't know that that's necessarily true, it is kind of clever that they use that in the marketing. So I kind of can get on board with that. For those that don't know, this is a very politically charged film. Zobel and Lindelof actually came out and said that the film serves as like a satire on the profound political divide between the American left and right. So basically, what this film does, in my personal opinion, this is my biggest takeaway from it as far as the political aspect of it goes, is this just shows me that no matter what side these people are on, these extreme people on one side or the other, they're all batshit crazy. They all have their flaws. They all are somewhat unlikable, to be quite honest. And that's the problem, kind of. And I'm not going to get into politics on this because that's not what we do here. But this is a major part in this movie. So just commenting on it, it does portray both sides as being a little bit off kilter and a little bit crazy and having these extreme ideas that sound ridiculous when they're uttered in the dialogue in this movie. It sounds just as ridiculous as it does when you see it every day on social media. You hear it when someone's talking to you in your everyday life. So in that aspect, they did find a balance there and kind of poking at both sides, I guess you could say. It's not as one-sided as you would think, based on the premise. This is also kind of one of my main issues with the movie, and this is just because me not being a political person, when stuff delves into the politics too much, I tend to tune it out, and that's just a personal preference of mine. So when you have these people who are obviously, because it's a satire, it's not meant to necessarily be taken seriously, but when you have these people who are caricatures of these extreme wing people on either side of the equation, I have a hard time taking those characters seriously, or not even taking them seriously, but I guess being on anyone's side or liking any of them or rooting for any of them. It's just me personally, like, I just didn't care about much of any of the characters in this movie because they are just, like I said, they're exaggerated cartoon-like characters of what you would meet in everyday life. So in that aspect, that kind of didn't work for me and didn't help me to enjoy the movie any more than I would have normally. The idea of having people abducted and put into this game reserve and having these rich elite people hunt them as sport, it's not necessarily a new idea either. It's something that we have seen before. The only difference here is that they do put modern politics into it, and that's, again, where you kind of lose someone like me who doesn't necessarily care about the politics side of anything. When you delve too much into the politics, that tends to turn people away or turn people off. And I think if you are a person like me who's not into politics, this might not be something that you're going to enjoy because it is very on the nose. It's very in your face with what it's trying to say. And I think that turns a lot of people off. So that is an issue with the movie, I think. Not to say there aren't things about it that I did like. And there are things about it that I do like. But one of the other things that kind of bothered me a little bit before I get into the things I do like is that as a viewer, the idea is that you're supposed to, I guess, latch on to one of the characters. You're supposed to like one of the characters. You're supposed to root for one of them. And while I did kind of root for the main character of the story, and I'll get to her in a second, the rest of the characters in the story, and that goes on both sides, the people being hunted and the hunters, aren't necessarily likable because of the way they're portrayed in the movie as being like these dumb, again, caricatures of actual people. And yeah, it just made it hard for me to be able to root for any of them. So that's kind of an issue a little bit too. when you have unlikable characters, no matter what reason you don't like them, you need to have some more likable characters, I guess you could say. As far as the elements of the movie that I did like, there's the pacing of the movie. It starts off right away, like it drops you right into the shit. It starts with characters waking up in this field, and they all have these muzzles on, and they don't know what's going on, and there's a box, and they open the box, and there's weapons in it, and so it drops you right into it immediately. There's no build up to it really, and I like that because that pacing, as far as like starting right away, the pacing continues throughout the whole movie. It doesn't really let up the whole time, and I kind of dug that. As far as like keeping me interested in the movie, that was one way to do so. The lead, Crystal, I really, it's played by Betty Gilpin, excuse me. She's kind of a wild card, and I kind of dug her character in this. It was the only character that I kind of dug in this. She's a little bit crazy, and they show that in the movie. And that's a little bit different, I think, for this type of movie, where the main character is kind of just as crazy as the people that are hunting her. But I don't mean crazy in a sense of her ideals. I mean, she actually seems to have almost mental issues, and there's a whole scene in the movie that's dedicated to her saying basically, I have this feeling inside of me, this urge to, I guess, let loose this murderous rage that I have inside of me, and this is my chance to do that. So she's almost, I guess, happy that she was, not necessarily happy because she is kind of pissed off, of course, but she's almost relieved that she's able to give in to her urges now because she was selected and abducted by these people, and now she's going to take revenge on them. And I thought that was pretty cool. And and it also makes it a little bit harder a little bit easier to root for her because she's kind of a neutral also. And that's kind of beat home even more by the end of the movie when you realize that she's not the person that they thought she was. In the sense that there's two girls with the same name that live in her town, and they may or may not have abducted the wrong one, and she alludes to that. So she may not even have the ideologies that the elite people think she does, and she may be an innocent even by their standards, like, you know what I'm saying? So like that made it a little bit easier to like her, and I just enjoyed her performance, to be honest, too. The movie messes with your expectations a little bit because you're not quite sure who the protagonist is starting off. They have people like Emma Roberts, who they start the movie off with, and you think she's going to be like the main girl, but she gets killed off rather quickly. So they're kind of playing with your expectations. Same with the very next guy who they carry over to. Like, he knows his way around with a gun, and he looks like he's going to be an issue to deal with, but he dies relatively quickly as well. So yeah, until you're introduced to Crystal, you're kind of up in the air about who actually is going to be the one to, survive this or take it back to them. So I thought that was kind of cool how they played with your expectations a little bit. The kills in it are very brutal. They don't shy away from the gore at all. You see people getting blown apart by grenades, completely apart, blown in half, stabbed, shot. Yeah, they don't really shy away from anything as far as that goes. Shot with arrows. Yeah, you get to see all the violence, all the gore, and I think that's important in a movie like this because, again, people like violence and gore. I know I do. It's, when it's not too much, it's done just right, I think it works really well, and it helps the movie, and I think that's the case in this movie. I think it was done to the perfect amount and done well. I found the moments in the movie where the elites set up like these fake scenarios to kind of trick the people that are being hunted. I found those to be the most interesting, and I kind of wish they would have delved into that more. And I suppose if there's ever maybe a sequel to this, maybe they'll kind of deal with that a little bit more, like them setting up these scenarios just to mess with the people that are being hunted. Like, I found that really interesting. Most of them are in the first half of the movie, sort of. And it should be noted that the first half of the movie I liked much better than the second half, when things get turned around and Crystal kind of takes it back at the people that are hunting her. And she basically just destroys them. But yeah, like from that moment on where everything kind of changes, like I kind of lost interest a little bit, to be honest. I was much more interested in the beginning when they were actually being hunted. But, it is what it is. As far as overall, I'm going to give this movie like a 6 out of 10. Slightly above average. It's not anything that's going to change your life. I think it's worth a shot if you're into this sort of genre, thriller, horror type thing. But for anyone who is annoyed by any kind of political message or political, I guess, ideologies, this is probably not going to be the movie for you. You're probably going to be turned off by some of the things that are said in it. And you know what? It's even going to, I think it's important to again, I'm going to reiterate this that I said in the beginning. It does poke fun at both sides, but I think with how politics are, if you're one side or the other, you can find, I guess, something to be offended by no matter which side you're on. And the minute either side is offended, they're automatically going to shun a movie, and that's probably what's going to happen with this movie, to be quite honest. And then the people in the middle, like me, who don't really care one way or another, they may even be shunned, may even be turned off by it because of all the political nonsense. So I think it's a good premise for a movie. I don't know that modern politics being incorporated into it necessarily helped it. I think if they were a little less heavy-handed with the message and maybe were a little more ambiguous about the political message, that it might have gone a long way to making the movie better. But overall, again, 6 out of 10. Let me know what you think about it in the comments down below. If you've seen it already, if you plan on seeing it, if you have no interest in seeing it, if you're boycotting it, whatever the case may be, let me know about it in the comments down below. As always, like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and we'll see you next time right here on Real Shift. Thanks for watching.